Hello and welcome to SRUK's first webinar of 2023. My name is Sue Farrington and I'm the Chief Executive, and today we're going to hear from Dr. Emma Blamont, our Head of Research, about our research portfolio. Now, as some of you know, SRUK was set up in 2016, and over the last 6 years, we've been working with you, our community, our clinicians and researchers, to try and understand how we can collaborate together to really drive change and accelerate benefits to patients. And Emma's going to take you through the work that we've done to develop our research strategy to make sure that we are really using our resources in the most effective way possible. And she'll also share the work that we've done, the partnerships we've developed, and the research that we funded. So I'm going to hand over to Emma.
Afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming along to listen to this webinar. I hope you're going to find it interesting and informative. So to crack on, I guess it's 2023 and it's a new year for SRUK research. And really what I'd like to do in this presentation is to explain our research strategy, introduce and showcase the activities of the research team, and tell you about some exciting projects that we're working on and have funded. Before we get into the details of the projects we funded and what we do as a research team, I wanted to explore our research strategy with you. So this is a public version of the research strategy, which is now available on the SRUK website under the research section. And in the next slides, I'll explain the process of how our research strategy was developed in partnership with people living with scleroderma and Raynaud's, clinicians and scientists. So in terms of research strategy development, we really put SRUK put people living with scleroderma and Raynaud's at the heart of the development of our research strategy. People living with scleroderma and Raynaud's worked in partnership with clinicians and researchers to identify the research areas of importance to them, which became SRUK's research themes, which I'll explain over the coming slides. So the first thing that we did as an organisation is that we really worked in partnership with people with scleroderma and Raynaud's to learn more about their healthcare journeys from their first symptoms, their visits to the GP, their specialist care and their ongoing care. And this work highlighted a number of barriers faced by patients which need to be addressed in order to improve the healthcare journey. So the barriers we faced are lack of awareness, delay in referral, inability to predict progression of the condition, no treatments to target the condition as a whole and without side effects, markers for stratification of patients into groups who will respond best to therapies, outcome measures, poor quality of life, and mental health provision. So our lived experience group of people with scleroderma and Raynaud's worked with clinicians and researchers to help identify the research gaps linked to each of these barriers within the patient journey. So you can see these are the individual research gaps, and they cluster under 4 distinct themes, which became the key themes of our research strategy. And these are the causes of scleroderma and Raynaud's, early detection and diagnosis, precision medicine, and quality of life. And these actually map to the areas as well of the patient journey. So before I go on much further, I'm just going to ask perhaps a rhetorical question. What's precision medicine? So I just want to show the difference between precision medicine and traditional medicine. So traditional medicine, as typified by this example, really is based on identifying how patients present clinically in terms of the visible symptoms that they present with, and then trying them on the first line drug. If that doesn't work, offering them a second line drug and a third line drug, and so on and so on and so on. Whereas the difference in precision medicine is they use very sophisticated techniques looking at the genetic markers, protein markers and various other markers which are not visible to the eye, to actually work out the molecular basis of a patient's disease, and then offering them the appropriate treatment based on their molecular characteristics. So back to the research strategy and the key themes. After we identified the key themes of the research strategy that SRUK should be focusing on, we actually asked the patients and clinicians to actually rank these in the order of priority of most important to them. And this is the ranking, with precision medicine, perhaps unsurprisingly, at the top, early detection a close second, quality of life third, and the causes of scleroderma and Raynaud's last. Working with the clinicians and research leaders, we identified the blockers to research which could prevent or put brakes on progress in the areas identified. And these were identified as being the lack of consistent and coherent data sets, and you'll hear more on that later, the lack of clinically validated biomarkers, lack of therapeutic interventions to address the condition as a whole, and few objective outcome measures. So outcome measures are what clinicians use to tell whether a treatment is actually working within a clinical trial setting. And some additional blockers were identified, which are perhaps unsurprisingly people power, so capacity building, attracting new people into the field of scleroderma and Raynaud's research, and actually funding, the availability of funding to support research. So SRUK took all this information and really synthesized it into a research strategy and put together our ambitions for our 5-year research strategy. And these are to enable a strong foundation to research, thinking about data sets and access to biomarkers, promoting collaboration across industry and academia, because academic and clinical research is very important, but it has to translate to actually new therapeutics for patients or new ways of doing things or new diagnostic tests, and that's where industry needs to come in. To support and promote wider scientific research into the conditions, and to produce a return on investment. And the ultimate investment for SRUK is patient benefit, to improve the lives of people living with scleroderma and Raynaud's. But we also aspire to try and, if where possible and appropriate, to have a financial return on our investment, should any research that we fund become commercially viable. So that way we can plough this investment back into research. So I'm going to segue into now the research team. So the research team is myself, Emma Blamont, and Nick Jeffries-Owen, who's our research officer that works with me. And what do we do? Well, we lead our own research, which I'm going to give you some examples of in the next slides. We partner with other organisations to deliver research. We fund research through grant giving, and we communicate research. And these all centre on the 4 key themes of our research strategy: early diagnosis, precision medicine, causes, and quality of life. So I'm going to give you an example of a project where we've led our own research, and it really fits in with the themes of early diagnosis and quality of life, and perhaps data sets as well. And that's the work that we've been doing on the STAR app, or the Raynaud's app. So the Raynaud's app, or STAR as it's known now, came about in 2018 when SRUK applied to a competition which was run by Microsoft called AI for Good. SRUK were given a small financial award and partnered with a company with expertise in databases, analysis, and dashboard development. And basically the premise of the project was, what if we could take clinical data and match these with patient-reported data in a secure database which could be analysed for the early warning signs of scleroderma, i.e. we watch people at early pre-scleroderma, or at the early stages of scleroderma, and sort of watch how they progress, and then go back and look for the signs, the flags along the way. So we worked with Professor Francesco Delgado, who has the STRIKE cohort, to following patients' risk of progressing to scleroderma. And, you know, we we were looking at this project as a proof of concept to explore the possibility of matching clinical and patient reported database to identify the patterns which could predict scleroderma. So we tested the phase 1 app, the version 1 app, in 100 patients within Francesco Delgado's STRIKE cohort. And then around February 2021, around Raynaud's Awareness Month, we sort of thought, well, you know, this tool actually could be generally useful for people with Raynaud's to enable them to track their symptoms and empower them to seek help for their condition or build up an evidence base for their condition. So we offered it up to 200 people. We had 129 people, we had 200 people express interest, which converted into 129 people taking tokens and using them and experimenting with using the app for a month. So the feedback we got from the people, the SRUK cohort, the group of people of SRUK supporters that tested the app, was that they enjoyed using it. So based on this, we decided to develop a version 2 of the smartphone app, which became STAR. And we had focus groups. We thought about new trackers, an information and comms strategy, working with new clinical partners, new people with lived experience of Raynaud's, and funding. And we actually managed to secure external funding to pay for this phase of the project, which was really good news. So we held focus groups with people living with Raynaud's, either primary Raynaud's or Raynaud's and scleroderma. And we really got their views on using the app, the type of things that they would like to track, and the features they would like to see within the app, the interface design, how they would like the app to look, and how they would like to receive communications from SRUK. We then worked with a group of clinical and technical experts who helped us identify the most essential clinical information to collect and the frequency at which we should collect it, what they would like to see, and give us an indication of the data quality they would expect. And from these, we developed a specification for the version 2 app, which was given back to the 2 groups for feedback, and this informed the final app design. So in terms of the STAR app, this is how it looks. You can see we've got a number of trackers here in terms of Raynaud's attack. This is a real-time attack tracker, which allows real-time reporting about the trigger of the attack, how long it lasts for, pain, and allows upload of images of attacks. We have a daily summary because some people don't like reporting their attacks in real time. It's perhaps inconvenient for them. So this allows somebody to receive a notification in the evening, and they can upload, you know, how many attacks they've had that day, how the attacks affected them, and general questions like location, color change, and Raynaud's condition score, which is how your Raynaud's affected you on that particular day. Then we have a monthly check-in, which has sort of questions relating to, this is perhaps more relevant for somebody who has not been diagnosed with scleroderma, but it asks questions that are linked to red flag warning signs for the diagnosis of scleroderma, like have you had heartburn, have you had ulcers? And then a 6-monthly question, which is asking things about health and life satisfaction and how you're coping with Raynaud's. So SRUK sees the app as an opportunity to learn more about Raynaud's, including sort of unknowns like how many people are affected year round. And really, you know, keeping people engaged with the app and, you know, giving back to people who are engaging to the app in terms of providing insights. We see that as something of great importance, and, you know, we should be giving information back to people as much as we're taking information from people. So part of this, we send out monthly newsletters sharing insights from the data that we analyze from the app. The data is all anonymized and is analyzed by the research team. And we share this information in the form of monthly newsletters. And this gives a snippet from the November newsletter, and you know, the sort of how we sort of present this information to the community, the STAR community. So the next activity I'm going to share with you is partnership, and it's a partnership that SRUK has with a company which uses artificial intelligence to identify disease pathways. And this maps to precision medicine and causes. So the work that SRUK is doing with in silico medicine that came about through a presentation that SRUK delivered at the Longevity Forum in 2019. SRUK won a prize for the best pitch, and they were partnered with in silico to work on the problems that were presented. And these problems were, can we identify drug repurposing? Can we identify drugs which are already in use for other medical conditions that could be useful against scleroderma? Could we identify biomarkers for scleroderma? And could we identify novel targets for therapeutics for scleroderma? So SRUK and in silico have worked together on the drug repurposing stream and the biomarker stream. And we have some data which we're trying to look at potential ways we can take this work forward and basically get funding to take this work forward. So I'm now going to move on to grant giving, and I suppose grant giving really maps to all 4 areas of our research strategy: early diagnosis, causes, precision medicine, and quality of life. So before I move on to tell you about the grants that we've been funding over the past couple of years and more recently, I want to give you an idea of how the grant giving process works. So SRUK is a member of the Association of Medical Research Strategy Charities and the AMRC, and as part of our membership of the AMRC, we are audited to ensure that we are adhering to their quality processes for funding medical research. So in terms of how our grant giving processes work and comply with the AMRC regulations, SRUK puts out a call for applications. So we advertise saying that we're looking for applications either in any area that relates to our research strategy or in a specific area, and that's known as a themed call. Our community sees this call and submits applications to us. We sift through the applications, we check that they're complete, they're of good quality, there's nothing missing, and then we take them to peer review. So peer review is when the scientists or clinicians of a similar background look at the application and really give their opinion on its scientific merit and potential for patient benefit. Once we have these opinions in, we then present this to our research committee, and our research committee is made up of scientific and clinical experts, and we have 2 patient representatives on the committee as well. The research committee give their opinion on whether the application is worth funding. We then take this to the trustees, who then say yes or no, and then we communicate back to the scientist or clinician that their application has been successful or unsuccessful. So this is a really rigorous process, and it shows that investing in SRUK research is actually a safe investment, because we've got lots of checkpoints along the way to make sure that the research is worth investing in. So the first project I'm going to tell you about is actually quite an exciting project that was funded from a competition that was run in 2020, just sort of pre-pandemic. And it's the SRUK EPSRC sandpit to develop a new diagnostic tool. So the EPSRC is the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council, which is part of UKRI. And SRUK approached EPSRC to see whether they would be interested in co-funding a sandpit. And the idea of a sandpit is where you bring together scientists from lots of different backgrounds. So it could be clinicians, computer scientists, engineers, and biomedical scientists. and you bring them together to think about one particular idea. And this idea is a better diagnostic tool for scleroderma and to assess patients with scleroderma. So some of you might be familiar with the modified Rodnan skin score, otherwise known as the skin pinch test, which you may or may not have done to you in clinic as part of assessment of how your scleroderma is progressing. This technique is quite difficult. It's quite difficult to have agreement between clinicians on how somebody's scleroderma is from this. So, it's quite subjective in a way. And clinicians must undergo extensive training in this technique. So as part of the sandpit, we asked participants whether a new, more objective diagnostic tool could be developed, which would require less training and be easier to use. So as part of this, 4 teams submitted applications after the sandpit to our research committee, and 2 applications were funded. The first was by Dr. Ben Almquist at Imperial College London, and this was co-funded by the EPSRC, and it's a bio-inspired window into the culprit of disease. And it's after, that's quite a long title, and it's been abbreviated to SCIDX. So Ben Almquist's project really aims to develop a novel wearable system for real-time skin monitoring. So you might have seen the diabetes patches that some patients with diabetes wear to monitor their blood glucose. The idea is a system like that could be used for scleroderma that could actually sort of monitor what's going on in the tissue under the skin, and be a less invasive way of monitoring how a patient's progressing. And it could be used to see how a patient is responding to treatment. Is the treatment working appropriately? Or it could be used for early diagnosis of scleroderma in at-risk groups. The second project was from Peter Worsley's team in the University of Southampton. This was solely funded by SRUK. And this is called the Objective Assessment of Scleroderma Skin Tissues, otherwise known as OASIS. And Dr. Worsley's project aims to develop a new skin assessment technique by repurposing existing technologies already in clinical use. The technique was initially intended to support clinical management, but actually it could be incorporated in the longer term into a wearable, again, for patient self-monitoring. So these are very exciting projects. They're currently ongoing. Their start was delayed because, the pandemic and challenges with recruited staff, which meant which a lot of projects actually suffered from within SRUK and other funders as well. And we're looking forward to communicating the results of these projects to you when they finish. So now on to a more recent call, which was held last year, which is the Stratified Medicines of the Future call, which SRUK ran in partnership with the World Scleroderma Foundation. And this really maps to the area of precision medicine. So we had many applications to this call. We had about, I think, 13 applications in. And we ran this as a winner takes all competition where we would fund one applicant because we really wanted something that could transform the research landscape. So the winning team was Professor Jörg Dissler, who's based in Germany, and Professor Chris Denton, who's based at the Royal Free. So it's really collaborative research. And the project's called Multi-Omics Towards Personalized Medicine in Systemic Sclerosis. This sounds like quite a complicated title for a project, and this flowchart really represents what the team are trying to do. So the idea is they're using techniques which are sometimes used in cancer medicine, where you take tissue samples, expose it to treatments in the lab, and look at how the patient's tissue is responding on a molecular level in response to the treatment. And from this, you can generate scores of how treatments work in a particular patient or a particular group of patients, and then identify the best patient for a treatment from the outset, rather than exposing them to many different treatments that may or may not work. Another project that was unsuccessful within this call, but we eventually did fund it in partnership with the Alder Hey Children's Charity, because it was actually the runner-up, was Dr. Claire Payne and Professor Christian Hedrick. Claire Payne's at Alder Hey Children's Hospital, and Professor Christian Hedrick is at the University of Liverpool. And this project was called Pasties, which, you know, actually made us feel quite hungry in the research team whenever we read it. Patient stratification and individualized treatment in systemic sclerosis. And this, I suppose, works in a sort of similar area. The team are looking at genetics, transcriptomics, so the sort of how to describe how genes are activated within the tissue, skin biopsies, and immune cells of patients with children with scleroderma, and using these to explore the molecular processes of pediatric scleroderma, which could lead to the identification of biomarkers, which could help drive personalized medicine, which could be instrumental in the diagnostic, prognosis, working out what's somebody's progression with the condition, and how best to treat somebody with scleroderma, a child with scleroderma. So this project is yet to start, so, you know, we look forward to it starting and communicating how this is going as well to the community. So we've sort of touched on how our grant giving is instrumental for the four main themes of the research strategy. But now I want to sort of indicate how our grant giving is actually helping to boost capacity in the field, the people power barrier. So SRUK has a memorandum of understanding with the MRC. So the MRC is the Medical Research Council, and it is also part of UKRI. The Medical Research Council funds, it gives out research grants, as does SRUK, but it also invests in training scientists and clinicians and providing grants for named individuals to carry out research. And one of the initiatives they run is called the Clinical Research Training Fellowship. And this allows medical doctors, it allows them to buy out time from their clinical duties to carry out research within the lab. And the idea is they are expanding knowledge within a particular clinical area. And they're also, by carrying out research, they're sort of increasing their understanding of an aspect of the condition. And that will then in turn lead to them, well, perhaps carrying on doing research in partnership with their clinical work, or, you know, this research knowledge, it could help them think about better ways of caring for their patients as well. So SRUK has funded, in partnership with the MRC, one clinical research training fellowship. They're very competitive awards. We were really happy that Dr. Nina Goldman, who is at the Royal Free working with Professor Chris Denton and Dr. Boonong, made it through. You know, it's quite a rigorous process of interviews and reviews. And her project is called Defining Pathogenic B-cell Regulation, and she's working on its role in scleroderma-associated interstitial lung disease. This project started in September 2021. You might have seen that Nina has spoken about some of her work in some of SRUK communications, like the Christmas appeal. And we're looking forward to seeing how this work progresses, and, you know, wish Nina all the best. So this is the work that the previous slide spoke about the work that we are doing to boost clinical capacity in the field, but research is really a partnership between scientists, who are perhaps carrying out the more sort of fundamental research into the mechanisms of the condition, and the translational components, and clinicians. So, you know, there's also a need to increase the number of scientists in the field. And as a result of a generous legacy that SRUK received, where the family and friends wanted the legacy to be named after the person who donated or bequeathed the money to SRUK, SRUK had the idea of developing the Olive Ayub Intermediate to Late Stage Fellowship. So this is really, the idea of this fellowship is to allow an exceptional scientific researcher to transition from being a postdoctoral research where you're working for another scientist within the lab, to actually becoming a research leader and set up their own research group. So this, the fellowship winner is a winner takes all competition again. There will be just one winner, is to be decided in January 2023, in a couple of weeks' time. And we look forward to telling you more about the winning project and the winning individual in the near future. So in terms of the last activity that we do as a research team, we try and communicate research, be it SRUK funded research or research that comes from other funders that has relevance to scleroderma, to the community, to really sort of highlight the value of research. So this picture here, image here, is from our research news, which is in the research section of the SRUK website. And here on the right, this is actually a sneak preview of the upcoming members magazine. And it actually has the results of a survey that SRUK carried out into calcinosis. And SRUK has published this work in partnership with Professor Ariane Herrick in a scientific journal. And SRUK has written up the results of this research for the community as well. That's upcoming in the next edition of the magazine. So what I've told you a lot about past or present, so it's like now on to the future. What are we planning for 2023? So our latest initiative is really focusing in on this lack of consistent and coherent data sets, this sort of barrier that was identified by patients, researchers, and clinical experts. And to try and break this barrier, SRUK has had the idea of developing a patient registry. So patient registries are basically the patient registry. Our vision is that SRUK would develop a registry of patients living with scleroderma and Raynaud's. And this registry would take together patient-reported data, clinical data, and they would be anonymized and held within an SRUK patient registry. And the information which could be used to generate evidence, which could allow SRUK to advocate better for patients. It could be used to provide evidence for certain aspects of patient care, or the need for certain services to be provided. And it could form also real-world data, provide real-world data or evidence on how drugs work in patients in terms of how this links to sort of outcomes. The data could also be accessed for research, or patients could actually, participating within the registry, could participate in research into certain aspects of scleroderma if they wish to. And also the registry could be important in identifying patients that might be suitable for clinical trials, the most appropriate patients for a particular clinical trial. So it could facilitate the development of new treatments. So patient a patient registry. SRUK is not unique in having a patient registry. There are other patient registries out there. The Cystic Fibrosis Trust, for example, have a patient registry that's been running for a very long time, about 20 years. The MS Society, they have a patient registry which has been running for about 7 years. And there are other charities out there that run registries under various different models. So it's something that we've developed a plan for its development and how we could implement a registry. And we're going to be reaching out to our community over the coming months to really sort of get their views on data and assess its feasibility and whether people would actually be interested in contributing to a registry, participating. So how do we fund our research activities? So we fund our research through the donations we receive or through the fundraising activities that we undertake, or sometimes through partnerships. We partner with other organisations. As you can see, these are some of the sample organisations that I've mentioned: Alder Hey Children's Charity, World Scleroderma Foundation, UKRI, MRC, and Engineering and Physical Research Sciences Council. We have In Silico and HealthFit there. So we really try to leverage funding from other organisations where possible to allow us to invest in more research and be more efficient in our investments. So now, how can you help drive our research forward? So you could take part in surveys which provide evidence to justify research, like the calcinosis survey that we ran last year. You can join focus groups on SRUK projects like the STAR app and the upcoming registry project. And you can also donate to invest in our research. And I'd just like to say thank you for listening today. You can text to donate if you're interested in donating to research, or we have a QR code which can take you to our research investor page.
Emma, thank you very much indeed. There was a lot to cover there. And I hope those who are on the webinar now kind of get a sense of just what we've been doing over the last 6 years and kind of what we're planning for the future. If anybody has got any questions, please do type them into the Q&A box and we will try and answer them. And while you're kind of thinking about that, Emma, I kind of got a question for you. And I just wondered, what do you think is the most pressing priority for scleroderma research?
That's a tricky one. I think for me, there's probably a couple of aspects, actually. I don't know whether you can say I can narrow it down to one most pressing. I think there's the data side of things. I think, you know, the lack of data is a barrier that needs to be broken down. So, you know, something like the registry can obviously facilitate that. I think, you know, also there's more to uncover on the sort of the mechanisms of scleroderma, which maps into the causes, actually, because you can only develop new treatments if you really understand the disease, the condition, and what causes it, and the sort of the pathways which lead to the development of scleroderma. So I think, you know, that is another priority, and I think that will then perhaps lead to sort of more information on things like biomarkers as well.
Thank you. And I know that we've got the Raynaud's app, and that's had huge engagement, and people we know are kind of already signed up when we're able to allow more people to join it. But also I think we've got some plans to build on the app, and I just wondered if you wanted to say just a little bit about our hopes for the future of the app.
Yeah, so I suppose we've been considering, well, we'd like to scale up the app if possible. So we're investigating the possibility of that to allow more people to access the app and access it perhaps without a token code, just be able to download. So that's one element that we're exploring. We'd also thinking about perhaps redesigning the app slightly to include more of the symptoms of scleroderma as well. And one of the things we're going to explore as part of the patient registry project is whether the app could be used as a portal to allow patients to actually engage with the registry as well, and sort of submit data to the registry or submit information about themselves to the registry and perhaps receive information back.
Thank you. And I know one of the other things is because scleroderma is it's got a small population that it affects, it's really important that we work across Europe and internationally. And before Christmas, we reached out to some of our clinicians worldwide. And I wondered if you just wanted to say a bit about your discussions with that community and what their hopes and aspirations are for the future of research and how we can work more globally with them.
Yeah, I think, this is one of the things we're trying to understand, really, the research priorities within the UK and other countries, and see whether they actually, whether there's synergies in order to sort of, I suppose, more efficiently fund research and identify organisations with whom we can partner with from outside the UK, perhaps, to fund research. So really, yeah, this is something we're looking at progressing, and it's a case of watch this space.
Thank you. We don't have any questions, but I would just like to say we've had one comment in the Q&A, and Edith says, thank you so much for this really comprehensive overview. Really grateful to all the hard work done by SRUK. Onwards and upwards, she says, and I think that's a really good note on which to finish. So Emma, thank you very much, and thank you to Nick for producing this brilliant presentation and for sharing with everybody what it is that we've been doing and what we plan to do in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for attending.
Oh, actually, I shortly say that somebody, oh, it's applause. It's not a question. I had a hope that there might be another question there, but no, just more compliments and congratulations. Thank you. Hopefully we will see everybody in the not too distant future. If it's not on a webinar, then maybe when we visit support groups or we eventually have a conference that is face-to-face. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.